Welcome to Pivot Point Church for today's message on August 11th, 2024. Please make sure that you download our free app available on Google or Apple, the best way to keep up with all things Pivot Point. Please comment on whatever platform you're watching so we know you're here. And if you can, please fill out our Connect card on our website or app because we would love to hear from you. Don't forget to listen to today's worship music playlist, which can be found on our YouTube channel and on Spotify. The links can be found on our app or website. Please like and share our posts and videos so others can find us. Word of mouth is the best advertising there is, and you can help us by simply sharing our videos and posts. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of our messages. Now I want to thank Ian Hyde for the inspiration for today's message. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for taking such good care of us. Open our hearts and minds to be receptive to your word, oh God, that we might get to know you better and that we might be a better reflection of you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. So I think we've often heard this thing that says, don't judge me. It seems to be the cry of our culture, but what did Jesus really mean by these famous words? The ones when he says, do not judge and you will not be judged. Let's look at this passage. We're going to be in Luke 6, verses 37 through 45 today. We'll read the whole passage. Do not judge and you will not be judged. Do not condemn and you will not be condemned. Forgive and you will be forgiven. Give and it will be given to you. A good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over will be poured into your lap. For with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. He also told him this parable. Can the blind lead the blind? Will they not both fall into a pit? The student is not above the teacher, but everyone who is fully trained will be like their teacher. Why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye? How can you say to your brother, brother, let me take the speck out of your eye, when you yourself fail to see the plank in your own eye? You hypocrite, first take the plank out of your eye, and then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye. No good tree bears bad fruit, nor does a bad tree bear good fruit. Each tree is recognized by its own fruit. People do not pick figs from thorn bushes or grapes from briars. A good man brings good things out of the good stored up in his heart, and an evil man brings evil things out of the evil stored up in his heart. For the mouth speaks what the heart is full of. Now, this passage, there seems to be no connections. It's one that most of us have heard at least parts of it before. And as clear-cut as it may seem, in a way I found a little bit of a struggle just to figure out how best to teach what Jesus is trying to tell us here. It's one of those passages that I wish that it came out and says, okay, now go do it. But things are rarely that simple. Not because God makes things complicated. God, in his infinite grace and unfathomable depth of love, has made it so that the gospel message is the easiest thing to grasp and follow. And yet a person can spend their entire life studying it and never fully plumb its depths. No, it's us. We are to blame for overly complicating it. If there's one thing about human ingenuity and human sinfulness, it's that we are adept at applying both to misunderstand and misconstrue the simplest of Christ's commands, designed to teach us to be unselfish. And we can turn it into essentially a selfish precept. We see it all the time. And that's exactly what our culture has done with the precept, do not judge. Now, we tend to apply it to mean we should not attempt to discern the morality of the actions of others, with the implication that we're being hypocrites for doing so. The problem is that everyone judges on a very basic level. It's part of our natural instinct to discern potential threats in our environment. When someone approaches you on the street, whether you fully realize it or not, your brain is already beginning to register how they're walking, what their eyes are focused on, where their attention is, all of that. Because someone who's approaching you with the intent to harm you or rob you is going to give off some very different vibes than someone who's out for an evening stroll. Now, we also do it when we choose our doctors. We want to know if they're trustworthy and knowledgeable, will come to the right diagnosis and treatment. If a doctor's had a slew of malpractice suits levied against them and has a suspended license, we certainly don't want them in charge of our cancer treatment. Now, imagine if you told that doctor that you've decided to see a different one because of his conduct, and he said, "Well, don't judge me." That would be ridiculous, right? And yet we as a culture do that very thing anytime someone challenges any aspect of our way of life, but most specifically in the arena of morality. Now, let's look at the issue of abortion, for example. Culturally, it's a very hot button issue, but unfortunately, it's maybe a little less true now than it was in the past, because those of us who are pro-life and, yes, anti-abortion, we perceive a moral mandate to preserve the beauty of life expressed in the unborn. We affirm that fetuses are just as valuable, just as much alive, and just as much loved by God for being who they are, as much as the wonderful mothers who bear them. Yet the first reply we often get when we stand up for the rights of the unborn and assert that we shouldn't kill them is that we shouldn't judge others for the decisions that they make regarding their own bodies. This is the problem with our culture's appropriation of Jesus's teaching. It's almost as if people are saying we have no right to discern right from wrong in the public sphere or in other people's lives. But that's not what Jesus is talking about at all. In fact, Jesus is making it clear just how essential discernment of right and wrong, and specifically of other people's motives, is to the Christian walk. In Matthew 10:16, he says, "Behold, I am sending you out as sheep in the midst of wolves. So be wise as serpents and innocent as doves." You can't do that as he's commanded us unless we are discerning. Discernment is essential to our faith so that we aren't deceived by every eloquent teacher who comes our way or every new philosophy or system of morality that appeals to our culture. Instead, what Jesus is talking about here is made clear in the second part of the verse where he says, "Condemn not, and you will not be condemned." Now, by using a common Hebrew rhetorical device, Jesus frames his saying in a parallel structure, where the first part is essentially equivalent to the second part. Now, this happens over and over again in Hebrew scripture, especially in the Psalms and Proverbs, but it's also peppered throughout the rest of the Old Testament. A great example is Psalm 24, 1 and 2, which says, "The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, and the world and those who dwell therein, for he founded it upon the seas and established it upon the waters." Or, so Genesis 1:27, "So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them." Now, notice in each example, the writer says the same thing twice. And in verse 37, Jesus is doing this same thing when he says, "Judge not, and you will not be judged. Condemn not, and you will not be condemned." But Jesus isn't just doing this because it sounds poetic, though it does help us stick those things in our minds. He's clarifying what judging really means in this context. Now, it doesn't mean discerning right from wrong. Now, that is a skill which the Holy Spirit desires to cultivate in each of us, but it doesn't mean asserting that we should do what's right and refrain from what's wrong. What Jesus is saying is that we must not judge a person's worth or value simply because they are a sinner. Even when a person does what is wrong, they are still loved just as deeply by God as the person who does right. And this is something our culture doesn't understand at all. I have friends who in one breath will say that we Christians shouldn't judge, and in the next breath will ridicule us for believing that even a condemned murderer who repents right before their death can be saved. They cannot fathom how someone like the infamous cannibal Jeffrey Dahmer can receive Christ while in prison and be considered a brother to us. Though, to be honest, I suspect that even most Christians might have trouble fathoming that. We have to remember that God loves the whole world. He gave his son for everyone, even the worst sinner. Now the next part says, pressed down, shaken together, and that is exactly what Jesus is saying. Every single person on this planet was created in the image of God, and in spite of our sin, no matter how badly we twist and distort that image of God is still there. No matter what we've done, it's still there. And so no one is beyond the reach of God's love. No one is too far gone for salvation. As long as there's breathing, there's a chance. But when we judge that they are, when we condemn them and declare them to be of no worth, we're putting ourselves in the place of God. And even worse, we become blind to our own shortcomings, because whether we recognize it or not, we all have sinned and are in need of the grace which God freely offers us. This is why Jesus links giving and forgiving in the same way he linked judging and condemning. Just as much as God desires that we shouldn't be condemned, he desires even more that we will receive from the abundant grace that he's prepared for us. He uses the image of a buyer who's gone to market to buy grain to drive the point home. In the first century, and even in many places of the world today, people tended to wear long flowing robes without pockets. So when they went to the market to buy goods, they would fold over a length of cloth around their lap to make a makeshift pocket, which they would then fill with whatever they were buying. Now, as you may imagine, part of being a skilled seller, well, just about anything in the ancient world, involved also being a skilled haggler, and sometimes also being a bit dishonest. It was a common practice to stir the grain so they could sell it by volume rather than weight, so that they could get more money in return for less product. But here Jesus likens God to not only a good merchant, but to an all too generous one. He imagined the great merchant as filling the fold in our robes to overflowing with grain, packing it down, filling it up again, and shaking up to let it settle, and then filling it a third time so the grain is spilling out all over the ground. Unlike earthly merchants, God doesn't have to worry about running out of the abundance of what he wants to give us. His grace is immeasurable, and he is overjoyed to give as much and more than we can possibly imagine. But in his wisdom, he's also ordained that we should be part of the distribution of that grace. He wants to teach us that by turning away from our selfishness and by giving and forgiving in abundance, we will receive all the more. So the more we love, the more love we're able to receive in return. One commentator noted that Jesus is a perfect example of this. And he says, at the end of his life, Jesus had no possessions to bequeath his followers, no roof over his head, and certainly no money. All he had to give was his love. And he gave that in such abundance that he even gave his life for us. And in return, no one has ever been loved as much throughout the ages as Jesus. There have been many powerful men and women through the millennia between his time and ours. There have been many who are rich, many who are conquerors, many architects or builders, many inventors, and many wise philosophers, but none are adored the way Jesus is adored. None are remembered and revered by so many as Jesus is remembered and revered. We may lack power or money, and some of us even lack wisdom and common sense, but if we give the love and grace that we have received in abundance, pouring it out on the lives of those around us every day, I tell you, we will never, ever run out. The next part, blind men stumbling over planks and specks. We're going to talk about it. Jesus continues his train of thought in the parable in verses 39 through 45. We're going to read it again. Can a blind man lead a blind man? Will they not both fall into a pit? A disciple is not above his teacher, but everyone, when he is fully trained, will be like his teacher. Why do you see that speck in your brother's eye, but do not notice the log that is in your own eye? How can you say to your brother, "Brother, let me take out the speck that's in your eye," when you yourself do not see the log that is in your own eye? You hypocrite, first take the log out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to take out the speck that's in your brother's eye. For no good tree bears bad fruit, nor again does a bad tree bear good fruit. For each tree is known by its own fruit. For figs are not gathered from thorn bushes, nor are grapes picked from a bramble bush. The good person out of the good treasure of his heart produces good, and the evil person out of his evil treasure produces evil. For out of the abundance of the heart his mouth speaks. So at first glance, this parable may seem unrelated to the passage above. So what do blind teachers have to do with judging, condemning, giving, and forgiving? Well, the answer is they have everything to do with it. In Jesus' day, this parable was most probably meant as a jab directed at the Pharisees, who taught strict adherence to the tiniest details of the law, but had no compassion on anyone who was suffering or struggling to survive each day. They were blind to the goodness, the grace, and the mercy of God because they were blind to the good things of God. They were unable to see his grace and couldn't possibly teach their followers to find it either. They would point out the tiniest faults in their neighbors, unfeelingly calling them brother with a false sense of superiority, while ignoring the dangerous rot in their own hearts. And since a teacher can only teach what he or she knows themselves, they could not teach their disciples how to be gracious or merciful because they had never experienced God's mercy. Even though the Pharisees are long gone, we still have cultural influencers and teachers who are just as blind and yet just as ready to offer their wisdom to those hungry for guidance today. We're all familiar with the penchant many celebrities have to use their fame as a soapbox. Most have never studied politics, religion, or philosophy in depth, and yet they will readily tell others how they should think and vote. But it isn't just celebrities. Social media, TV, movies, music, language, story, and culture all shape how we think and feel regarding any given subject, often without us even knowing it. And it isn't just the forces of culture either. We do it. We're often as bad as the Pharisees of Jesus' time. There's a certain amount of irony in the fact that so many of us read these passages and nod approvingly when we might as well have massive planks, big old telephone poles sticking out of our eyes while we try to do so. There's a reason why, in a mass casualty situation, soldiers and survivors are taught to apply first aid to themselves first before trying to help others. If a soldier is wounded in a battle, he's not going to do anybody any good if he bleeds out himself while trying to put a Band-Aid on his buddy. He won't be able to continue the fight in which his wounded buddies will be killed anyways if he can't defend them. And he can't properly see to their injuries if he's losing the fight against his own. It's not that Jesus doesn't want us to remove the specks from the eyes of our brothers and sisters, because he does. He wants us to help each other and to see to each other's wounds. But he also knows that we won't really be able to help them heal in any meaningful way until we allow the great physician to heal us. And we cannot be healed if we ignore our wounds. Or worse, we conceal them. I know it hurts, but we have to trust him and each other with our vulnerabilities, with our frailties. but it is the instinct of any wounded animal to cover up its wounds. And that's how infection sets in. A wound can only be cleaned and bandaged if we expose it to the light, where it can be clearly seen and the remedy more easily identified. Here again, Jesus seems to shift gears in the last 3 verses, 43 through 45. For no good tree bears bad fruit, nor again does a bad tree bear good fruit. For each tree is known by its own fruit. For figs are not gathered from thorn bushes, nor are grapes picked from a bramble bush. The good person, out of the good treasure of his heart, produces good, and the evil person, out of his evil treasure, produces evil. For out of the abundance of the heart, his mouth speaks. But again, he's continuing the same train of thought. Trees and fruit may seem unrelated to blind men and planks, but Jesus is basically saying that our actions, how we treat others, and indeed what we teach and pass on, is all a reflection of our internal character. If we're rotten on the inside, if we're wounded and blinded by our own hypocrisy and lack of mercy, then that is what we will communicate to others. That is what we will teach our children. And we all know our kids are sponges, and they pick up more of what we do than what we say. And that is the image that Christianity is what we will reflect to that unbelieving world. That's what they will see. No wonder they call us hypocrites. No wonder they say we don't look any different, because we are. We need to be so different that they can see it. It's important to note here that the word heart that's used in verse 45 doesn't mean exactly the same thing in Semitic or Jewish cultures that it does in ours. Now, we tend to associate it with our feelings and emotion, but as I said before, true love isn't emotion. It isn't a feeling toward another alone, because love is a decision. Love is a commitment to care for another even when we don't feel like it. And the Semitic understanding of the word heart reflects that. The Jews of Jesus' time, though, would have viewed the heart as the seat of intellect as much of emotion. Decisions were made in the heart. Now, we might say it's a gut decision, or I have a gut feeling. So maybe we should use the word gut here. Wisdom transforms the heart. Sounds a lot better than wisdom transforms our gut, huh? What we teach needs to come from our heart, or the heart of who we are, from the very innermost being of who we are. When we understand that, we can understand just how this parable of the trees and fruit relates to the preceding parable of the blind leading the blind. If our hearts, the center of who we are, becomes corrupted by selfishness or bitterness, a condemning attitude, it actually will cloud our ability to perceive the world, ourselves, and others. It can even cloud our ability to understand the heart of God. But if we allow ourselves to be transformed by God's grace and mercy, if we take a risk on others by giving them love and forgiving them, we will find ourselves beginning to see the world more and more the way God sees it. Is the world sinful? Well, yes. Is the world unrighteous and harsh and in danger of judgment? Yeah, absolutely. But the world is also beautiful because God created it to be beautiful. And as difficult as it may be for us to see, God's artistry is reflected in all of his creation. And even those human beings with which the rest of the world has decided are worthless and expendable, like the unborn, the poor, the elderly, the criminal. They're all beautiful. They are all valuable. They are loved because they were created in the image of God. And yes, even you, even though you may have been taught in your whole life that you're worthless, In order to have worth, though, you must be rich, or you have to look the right way or act the right way. I'm here to tell you that you are beautiful. You are valuable. You have worth. And you are loved. And you might not be able to see it yet because you have been wounded so badly that it's clouding your vision. Trust God with your wounds today. Let him shine a light on your heart and transform what he sees inside. It may be impossible for man to turn a bramble bush into an orange tree, but nothing is impossible with God. Take all the time you need today and every day to examine yourself and take an honest look deep inside. Ask God to help you see that big old plank, that telephone pole, which might be sticking out of your face, and ask him to remove it and heal you. I promise you, he is faithful to do it. Will you pray the following prayer with me? The words are on the screen. Heavenly Father, grant me a humble heart that seeks to see the good in others. Help me understand that I am not without faults, just as no one else is perfect. Teach me to replace my critical thoughts with kindness and empathy. May I be a beacon of acceptance and love, celebrating the uniqueness in every soul I encounter. Thank you, God, for guiding me towards a path of compassion and understanding. Amen. Well, thanks for watching today. This week, I hope that you can find a way to be a blessing to someone else and that you can see the value in who you are so that you can take the plank out of your eye before you take the speck out of someone else's. We'll see you next time.
Join us on Tuesdays at 6 p.m. for our Zoom Bible study. We are going to study the book of Romans. There are 24 sessions, so it will be almost Christmas before we finish. I hope you can join us. The link can be found on our website or app. If you would like to do the study, but cannot join us on Tuesdays, please email Pastor Ruth at pastor.ruthking@yahoo.com, and she will help you do the study on your own. Just like the first century church that met in homes, our Bob groups do too. Bob stands for Body of Believers, and we hope that everyone will either join or host a Bob group. This is a great way to build relationships and grow your faith. All you have to do is invite your friends, family, neighbors, and co-workers to join you for a meal or potluck once or twice a week. While you are gathered, listen or watch our message, our worship playlist, and or join our Zoom Bible study. Unlike the first church, you don't have to wait until the traveling preacher comes around again. You can watch us any day of the week at any time. You do the hosting and we will do the teaching. It just might turn into your favorite time of the week. Download our free app available on Google or Apple. The app is the very best way to keep up with all things Pivot Point. We have links to the messages, Zoom Bible study, our brand new children's page, our Facebook, Instagram, Spotify, and YouTube channels, and more. If it's happening at Pivot Point, it's on the app. Check it out and see how easy it is to keep up with everything happening. Make sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Rumble, and Spotify. You can also find us in the podcast store wherever you get your podcasts. Word of mouth is the very best advertising there is, so could you also like, share, and comment on our videos and posts? Every like, share, and invite helps us to reach more people for Christ. Please comment on whatever platform you are watching from so we know you are here. Also, please complete our Connect card on our website or app so we can reach out to you. Since we cannot see your faces, this will give us the encouragement that someone is listening. You can also complete the prayer request card on our website or app so we know how to be praying for you. Don't forget to listen to today's worship music playlist. We don't have a music team yet, so we offer this list each week to enhance your worship time. The songs are different each week, so look for the one with the date that matches the message. If you have found this ministry as a benefit to you, please consider supporting us. The easiest way to give is through the Give tab on our website or app. You can also mail a check or money order to us at P.O. Box 806, Brighton, Colorado 80601. We don't have a building, but online isn't cheap. Please consider becoming a monthly partner so we can reach more people. Every little bit helps. All donations are tax deductible. We need your help. There is too much to do for just the two of us. And if we are to provide more content so that we can reach people for Christ, we need additional hands to help. We need help with our social media, creating and editing videos, uploading content for our children's page, and of course, our music ministry. If you feel called to assist us in one or more of these areas, please reach out to us so we can get you plugged in. Due to the ability of the internet, we don't even have to be in the same city, much less the same room anymore. You can help us from wherever you are. Just let us know by emailing pastor@ruthking@yahoo.com, and we can get you started. Although we are grateful for our online people, we would love to see some of you in person, so we are hosting Worship in the Workshop this summer in our home. Please register at our website or just email pastor@pastor.ruthking@yahoo.com, and we will get you our address. Pastries and coffee is included. We look forward to meeting you in person soon. Thanks for watching. Have a great week.